Before I introduce our next poet, I should remind you that there will be a reception in the Woodall Pavilion following the reading. J. Wright, our next poet, has traveled widely, having lived in places as diverse as Scotland and Panama, Holland and Venezuela, to mention only a few. He now lives in New Hampshire and teaches at Yale University, where he is assistant professor of English and Afro-American studies. Besides literature, his interests are anthropology, the theory of history, aesthetics, to mention a few. Mr. Wright's The Homecoming Singer appeared in 1971. His most recent volume is Dimensions of History, published just this year. 3 other collections are soon to be published. Mr. Wright's concerns with philosophical and theological questions find expression in poems that are densely textured, poems that contain mystery and resonances, and a sense of the transcendent. Mr. Wright.
I'll say good evening and thank Mr. Hayden for the gracious introduction, and Mr. Cott and Mr. Koch for going before and preparing the way. I'll have to say a few things about what I'm going to do, and I'm reasonably certain that you would prefer to have me read my poems rather than talk about them, so I will say less about the poems than I usually do. I'd like to begin with a poem about which I'll have to say something. The poem is called Lundu. Lundu is a Brazilian folk harvest song, which is associated with the aribu, or an African lullaby. So if you hear the word aribu in the poem, it's simply another name for the song form Lundu. Lundu. Moonlight, if I sleep on this bank and lay my head against your kiss, I recognize the river's sound. Timeless me, all day I raise my knife against the sugar cane, sugar brute who takes my days for pay. Sun glow in spring is crystal clean, sun glow north, sun glow south, sun glow summer, sun glow fall. The fall of sweetness weighs me. Aribu of the sweetest God, will this or what winter be the longest sleep? I serenade his green fingers, his water's magic, his boot in the earth, the way he pulls the green crowns to light. Aribu of the grainy God, will this or what fall be the desolation of our mother? I serenade the return of even light to her wrinkled face. Moonlight, now I lie on the crown of my own desire, hutched in the fall of the God, the fall of the cane, the fall of my own night. The poem I'm reading for you now is called Tamborito. Tamborito is a Panamanian song form, call and response. You will hear the call and response in the poem. I have to say a few things about the poem. The words you hear, tlekilidl, komali, metlapili, are cooking utensils. Tlekilidl is the hearth upon which the komali lies. The others are the various cooking utensils that the Navajo will use in order to make their corn tortillas and other meals. The refrain that you hear comes from the goddess associated with Haitian voodoo, Erzuli Freda Daomain. I think that's all that I'll have to say. Tamborito. 4 things I know will never change. I lie forever in the bed of my cross, north wind, south winds, east rain, west rain. The walls become my cross. Tlekilidl, I huddle the fire between my legs and light this room. I am solid. I am the measure of the house. I sleep with my grainy eyes, plucking the shadows from the room. A hummingbird, a forest flower, brought me to this house. My bones crushed in a pilon, I took my lover. Komali, clay, I lay myself flat, and under my mother's touch, I learn to serve. When I am no longer in use, I stand dejected near the burnt-out fire I danced upon. A hummingbird, a forest flower, brought me to this house. My bones crushed in a pilon, I took my lover. Metlapili, blunt image of the loved man's roller pin, I roll the juices from the god's first fruits. A hammer, I am forever raised above the heart of this house. A hummingbird, a forest flower, brought me to this house. My bones crushed in a pilon, I took my lover. Now I am a mambo, my asson croaks. Now I am a mambo, married to beads and snake bones. I call my maîtresse Erzuli Freda Daoman, Venus of Dahomey, bride of the Loas. I pierce her heart, lady of the seven sorrows. I stand to the music of my great, great, grateful, grating heart, perfect rhythm of a heart that never changes. Now I want to take you into one of my love's dozen. My love's dozen, of course, is associated with the dozens. It also is called Love's Dozen simply because there are 13 love poems within the section. The poems try to exploit and to explore the many aspects of love, the theological, psychological, sociological, historical. One of my primary assumptions, and I think that I should at least tell you that, is that there is no concept of love possible without some historical understanding of that concept. We must have a historical environment out of which the concept love grows. Therefore, you'll find that the love in this poem is not simple. Love in the water, love in the stone. Faithful bean lady of the plantain, your tubular beads surround my voice. You bring me a berry song so old I hug the silences. You embrace the silence and the clear light on the track of your quest to hear. I see now in that light myself into the tangle of the river's bottom. Knee deep in another's bliss, I wake and find myself a stone at your lover's feet. Then stone upon stone, I rise into another's fire. I touch your palm oil flesh to light me from my cave. And if I rise under your thunder into rain, I praise your touch. Now, lifelong, a laterite, a rain of beads, palm kernel oil, stipulate my clip time. The earth weaves 8 gold bridal veils to cast into the sea. The moon is up at noon to catch me naked, drunk and dancing with a ram. I use the loom of seasons so. I abuse myself. And even if I leave you, I marry your worship in my wife's voice. I begin the decline of having you close. Your memories feed me. These are my intolerable survivals, and so I take my love's journey from the language of your needs. I mount my woman's earth smell in the shadows of your ageless eyes. I crawl to the altar of your thunderstones and bleed for the bride whose blood will fill my name. I think I'll have to say very little about this poem because it tends to be rather self-explanatory. The poem is called An Invitation to Madison County. Madison County is in Mississippi. The Queens mentioned in the poem is Queens, Long Island. I ride through Queens out to International Airport on my way to Jackson, Tougaloo, Mississippi. I take out a notebook, write my Southern journal and the date. I write something but can't get down the apprehension, the strangeness, the uncertainty of zipping in over the Sunday streets with the bank clock flashing the weather and time as if it were a lighthouse, and the crab-like cars mistook it for their own destination. The air terminal looks like a city walled in, waiting for war. The arrivals go down to the basement, recruits waking at 5 a.m. to check out their gear, to be introduced to the business end of the camp. 15 minutes in the city and nothing has happened. No one has asked me to move over for a small parade of pale women, or called me nigger, or asked me where I'm from. Sure only of my destination, I wait. Now we move out through the quiet city, past clean brick supermarkets, past clean brick houses with nameplates and bushy lawns, past the sleepy-eyed travelers locked tightly in their cars. No one speaks. The accent I've been waiting to hear is still far off, still only part of that apprehension I had on the highway in Queens. The small campus springs up out of the brown environment, half green, half brown, covered over with scaly white wooden houses. It seems to be fighting this atmosphere, fighting to bring some beauty out of the dirt roads, the tense isolation of this place. Out to Mama T's, where farmers, young instructors, and students scream for hamburgers and beer, rub each other in the light of the jukebox, and talk and talk. I am still not in Jackson, not in Mississippi, still not off that highway in Queens, nor totally out of Harlem. Still have not made it into this place where the tables creak and the crickets close up Sunday just at evening, and people are saying good night early. Afraid now, I wonder how I'll get into it, how I can make my host forget these impatient gestures, the matching socks and tie. I wonder how long I'll have to listen to make them feel I listen. Wonder what I can say that will say, it's all right, I don't understand a thing. Let me meet you here in your home. Teach me what you know, for I think I'm coming home. Then I meet a teenage girl who knows that I can read. I ride with her to Madison County up back roads that stretch with half-fulfilled crops, half-filled houses, half-satisfied cows and horses and dogs. She does all the talking, challenging me to name the trees, the plants, the cities in Mississippi, her dog. We reach her house, a shack dominated by an old stove with its smoky outline going up the wall into the Mississippi air, mattresses tossed around the table, where a small piece of cornbread and a steaming plate of greens wait for her. Her mother comes out, hands folded before her like a Madonna. She speaks to me, moving step by step back into the house, asking me to come again, as if I were dismissed, as if there were nothing more that I could want from her, from Madison County, no secret that I could ask her to repeat, not even ask about the baby resting there on her belly, nor if she ever knew anyone with my name in Madison County, in Mississippi. Since I can't and will not move, she stays with her head coming up, finally in a defiant smile. She watches me sniff the greens, look around at the bare trees heaving up out of the bare ground. She watches my surprise as I look at her manly 9-year-old drive a tractor through the fields. I think of how she is preparing him for death, how one day he'll pack whatever clothes remain from the generations and go off down the road, her champion, her soldier, her lovable boy, her grief, into Jackson and away, past that lighthouse clock, past the sleepy streets, and come up screaming perhaps on the highway in Queens, thinking that he'll find me, the poet with matching socks and tie, who will tell him all about the city, who will drink with him in a bar where lives are crackling with the smell of muddy-rooted bare trees, half-sick cows, and simmering greens still in his nose. But I'm still not here, Still can't ask an easy question or comment on the boy, the bright girl, the open fields, the smell of the greens. Can't even say, yes, I remember this, or heard of it, or want to know it. Can't apologize for my clean pages, or assert that I must change after being here. Can't say that I'm after spirits in Mississippi, that I've given up my apprehension about pale and neatly dressed couples speeding past the lighthouse clock, silently going home to their own apprehensions. Can't say, yes, you're what I really came for, you, your scaly hands, your proud, surreptitious smile, your commanding glance at your son. That's what I do not search, but discover. I stand in Madison County where you buy your clothes, your bread, your very life from hard-line politicians, where the inessential cotton still comes up as if it were king and belonged to you, where the only escape is down that road with your slim baggage into war, into some other town that smells the same, into a relative's crowded house in some uncertain city, into the arms of poets who would be burned, who would wake in the Mississippi rain, standing at the window in different shadows, finally able to say, I don't understand, but I would be taught your strength. The father comes down the road among his harness bells and dust, straight and even, slowly as if each step on that hard ground were precious. He passes with a nod and stands at the door of his house, making a final brief inventory all around and in it. His wife goes in, comes out with a spoon, hands it to you with a gracious little nod and says, such as I heard when my mother invited the preacher in, or some old bum who had fallen off a boxcar into our small town and come looking for breadcrumbs, a soup bowl of dishwater beans, a glass of tap water served up in a murky glass, such as I heard when I would walk across the tracks in Bisbee or Tucson or El Paso or Santa Fe, bleeding behind the eyes, cursing the slim-butted waitresses who could be so polite, such as I could even hear in the girded ghettos of New York, such as I heard when I was invited behind leaky doors into leaky rooms for my loneliness, for my hunger, for my blackness, such as I hear when people who have only themselves to give offer you their meal. The poem that I'm going to read to you now comes out of, a section called, it comes out of modulations, out of the dimensions of history. And the 4 poems in this section are intended to sum up what has occurred throughout the text. The poem I'm reading now is called What is Good? Out of the water call my luminous breath into the bird intending serpent, red, who shakes himself, white, out of that forest body, black. Red gourd head, spirit of the bush, your breath is speech. Your speech is ordinary, pure. I take you from the blue glass of my sacred windows. I wring you cold upon my father's weights. I would cook and save you in my body's house alone, light you in the useless prism of my own desires. I hold you in the yellow parchment of my soul's hand. Once I took your body for the shape of all I walked upon, your God's voice for the sound of all my light. But now I count my sins against the ordinary syntax of my days. Bird of the hardwood, I would transcend the dog and fox of my father's prayers, the corn, the monkey, lion, and the seed cut crudely by the cross in gold, the black figures of a Christian death. Bird, so you would change and flutter in my mother's eyes, and in my mother's eyes still bodies have rhythms of their own. The light of dead hearts, my governors, leads my body to a stillness. I speak of stillness, and you see I still grip your rhythm to my body. rhythm of my shade, an elephant skin, rhythm of my hat, the llama's hair, rhythm of my coat, the cactus beard, rhythm of my trousers, silkworm web, rhythm of my shoes, pig hips, rhythm of my seat, the heart of a tree, rhythm of my hand in the beads, rhythm of my hands in the cleansing water, of my eye in the perfect form of stillness, the perfect light of my mother's ecstasy. Composed, I am saved by my mother's reason, my neighbor's needs, my will to go beyond the stillness of my God's dreams. Luminous breath, teach me compassion for this, my complex body. I'd like to read you a poem about a man I call one of my cut buddies from Harlem. He used to hang out in the bar across the street from where I lived and called himself the man from Chi because he was from Chicago. The poem tries to capture a little bit of his rhythm. The man from Chi. He'll get you there, the man from Chi, who walked west too fast that day, and wind was east and snow passed his hog cutters, choked his hat in the river, came out riding the hawk's back, his best shoes wasted, but he knew where to dry them, got loose, came east, pulled some boss business, was into money, but lost it with his love when she walked out the door. A shaky babe, he found a tear and framed it, for this is the city, and love is a dangerous thing. Get you there singing Stagger Lee and looking for a woman who dips snuff. At night, when the moon is out, he'll show it a piece of silver. I'd like to read you another portrait of one of my cut buddies. This one is a man from Mexico who used to sell on a cart sliced up cucumbers, sliced up pineapple, sliced up watermelon, or anything else that you would like to buy. The poem is called Joropo. Joropo is a Venezuelan dance form. It's something like a corrido. Mexican corrido is a social and satirical song form. They used to put them out during the Mexican Revolution. They still do from time to time. My joropo should be longer. The joropo actually has a very strict rhyme scheme, and it is written in quatrains and of 4 feet. But I haven't written a long joropo because my friend was a very reticent man. And again, the poem tries to capture some of his rhythm. Joropo. Finger this my cactus, come now, won't you buy now, take now, oh how thick can this rope of your heart be? Sausage of my sausage, you see it cut fat clean before your eyes. Canta comal, my eyes are wise, todo pica. Cactus, no sin in the piña rings, thin as thin, delicate halos on your thumb. Oh my friend, I am not so dumb to think you came this way by chance. Piña, pulque, tea, shall we dance? The poem I'm reading now, I think that I don't have to say much about. It is called The Measure. The Gibarie is, of course, the Nigerian two-piece white outfit with sleeves up to there, I guess, and white pants, their blouse generally. And that's all that I have to say about this. The Measure, the poem is called. I continue in my Gibarie. All things along my path are clean and white. I have set out on a flute's quiet wave in search of my dark love. Divination and division mark my road. Yet if I turn from left to right, I walk the same straight path. I carry the wine of salt water in my bag to the crossroads of honey and milk. I am puffed up and charged with the thought of my own separation. From light to light I continue while the light lasts. The light rests on my walking pole. I continue. If ever you marry, remember there is a festival of light on every island, a garden where the women gather in white to turn to the sound of a king's song. If you ask why the queen is silent, the dance is ended. Then only a boy on the cross of roads can find the blue stone of wisdom, the lury feather of love in the flesh. You ask me to enter the chamber and sing, groan, inexpressibly groan, ascend, descend, leap from the ash of your pillow to the calm light of your grave. I am too certain of the measure of these days. Sojourner and guest, I continue. I polish new stones from old. I am at Hale's End in the deep wings of the city. I would return to the feast. I continue. If a word may join us, we must have our paradigms and other flesh at another time. In this certainty, you may proceed to the darkness in your own heart. All this I heard spoken by one who would be found in me, and in the voice I marked no stammer of the spirit, no tremor in the body's wishes. I have always wanted to say, let my time be given to returning to the charge of my first light, let all other light lift my going. I have learned to see a seed as act, a word as a gift of perfection. The hand that slips the abundant seed into the darkness of earth extends from my body. I have always wanted to ask who speaks, who moves, and who returns when the eye is hidden in the paradigm. I have learned to accept my presence as act, my act as a placement of time. I hold now by my presence to have held the first light, and in my imperfection to have held the vision of my own absence. This is the one you marry so lightly. Each figure now twins and untwins us. We say we can be brought in white to the marriage bed, under a reed's base, and settled limb to counter limb with our desert's necessities. I wait as always at the crossroads to be led into the city. I desire your double journey. I ask your name. I continue. The poem I'll read now is called Villancico. Villancico is a 15th, 16th century Spanish form, strictly rhymed again. The rhyme will be apparent to you as I read the poem. It's call and response again. You will find the form still in Colombia, particularly around Christmas time. Villancico. Love in a body, love in this your sign. I raise 4 moons to polish your love shine. I raise 4 stars to see you as you stand. You take me in debt now to your own hand. You take your white dress from the waves. No stain appears upon the water where your train curls lacy from a ram's horn, hugger bane of 8 young brides. Could I myself now chain you to a monster rock to take the reign of my love? Horned, I hear the bell and plain chant far out of time. My love is the line you ride from the deep, and I ride the brine. Love in a body, love in this your sign. I raise 4 moons to polish your love shine. I raise 4 stars to see you as you stand. You take me in debt now to your own hand. My antelope, my horse, there is no rein, ram's horn, bull's bell, or God's eye to constrain you in the fields of love. There is no sane man who would touch your knees or hope to gain the secret of your clan hunger, the skein of your bones, wave of your heart's deepest vein. Your love sits on my heart, a heavy wine I give my untouched body at your shrine. Love in a body, love in this your sign. I raise 4 moons to polish your love shine. I raise 4 stars to see you as you stand. You take me in debt now to your own hand. Faithful one, you come, wind before the rain, bean-bred, corn-fed, lady of the bead chain. You hold an axe above your own domain, where no ram dare plow, seed, or shake his mane. In the thorough bass of your river plain, I hear your name assault a priest, a brain unfit to take a wife's caress, the whine of the child's voice hidden in this design. Love in a body, love in this your sign. I raise 4 moons to polish your love's shine. I raise 4 stars to see you as you stand. You take me in debt now to your own hand. There is pity in your name. In the rain of your compassion, crown of love, you strain to harvest pity on a bed of grain. Widow of death, bride of change, you remain the copy of the thorny heart, the vein split free and open by another's pain. Love, not your own, comes. You cannot decline your body's burden, the redeeming sign. Love in a body, love in this your sign. I raise 4 moons to polish your love's shine. I raise 4 stars to see you as you stand. You take me in debt now to your own hand. So where my eyes have seen 4 moons constrain these 4 stars to orbit and to ordain a pythoness, a body yields humane to the eye's grasp, to the touch of plain light. From orbit to orbit I retain now all the distance of your body, drain what light alone that it, my anodyne, leaves, what touch it gives from your spirit's spine. The poem I will read for you now is called Areto, another one of my call and response poems. The call and response is, as you well know by now, fairly common in South and Central America and in the United States, of course, among Afro-Americans, church people, Afro-Americans. The Mitote and Batoco are Mexican names for Areto. So if you hear that, they're simply other names for Areto. Areto. This is my mitote, batoco, areto, my baretote. This is my baretote, areto, batoco, my ba, mitote. Corre, corrido navideño. Friday the 13th and snow in the birch. Love's days all begin with that kind of coldness. We had come down to the fog and the bite of the sea, another of love's soft nibbles on the skin. The axe had chipped in the trees. High up, the squabble of birds through the evergreens became the painful sound of palms. And the woman sang, I've got love all around me, my own treasures found me, my savior is a boy in bloom. So you guess that I wrestled the shadows of my cabin at night. My wife in her corner tumbled over the milk in her sleep. We had arrived with more than a small purchase, a small reparation to make. Was it only the axe wronged in the trees? My skin is the repository of the sun's needles. Why had I chosen the cold? And the woman sang, flesh of my flesh, I nurse your dreams, I nurse your screams, I am your mother. Mystic rose of the heart, how could 3 of us be imprisoned there? And how could we come from the dark wood into the light, yet still hear the moonlit canticles pray in the water, still pray in another tongue for sunlight on our nets? 3 of us to nurse the night, and 3 of us for saving, santos and serpents tangled in the streams of our bodies, dance in the blue of our altar lights. Dolor, dolori pasa, a strength in a weary land, a shelter in the time of a storm. I had lived alone with the woman, sunlight, a sun, fish, the fallen apples, the holy deer that would kneel to our knife, all the provisions of prayer to find myself unmarried, my woman drunk with God, nurse of a Savior's screams. Then out of the woods I turned to the woods, to the toothless nurse of my own dreams. By the light of the 13th moon I began to search for my own light. Wood of the woods, bird of the woods, woman, you were created by God. Necromancer of the hummingbird, I bring you this bird's body and the 13 rings of my love's chains. I bring you the secret whispers of my wife's sleep, the tangled passions of the forest, the thorn I would return to another heart. bird of the woods, fly into her heart. Teach me how to stalk her sleep and the Bible of her loves. Teach me the darkness of 13 moons, how to contend with a God. Bathe me in love's coldness, woman of the woods. Dolor, dolori pasa. I lie down in the sand to hear my batoko, my mitote, my reto end. I would like to read you at least one other poem. This is called Meta-A and the A of Absolutes. It's the last of the aesthetic dimensions. God in blue, I run my gods upstream on flimsy rafts. I bathe my goddesses in foam, in moonlight. I take my reasons from my mother's snuff breath or from an old woman sitting with a lemonade at twilight on the desert steps. Brown by day and black by night, my God has wings that open to no reason. He scutters from the touch of old men's eyes, scutters from the smell of wisdom, an orb of light leaping from a fire. Press him, he bleeds. When you take your hand to sacred water, there is no sign of any wound. And so I call him supreme, great artist, judge of time, scholar of all living event, the possible prophet of the possible event. Blind men on bourbon with guitars, blind men with scars dulled by cola, blind men seeking the shelter of a raindrop, blind men in corn, blind men in steel, reason by their lights that our tongues are free, our tongues will redeem us. Speech is the fact, and the fact is true. What is moves, and what is moving is. We cling to these contradictions. We know we will become our contradictions, our complex body's own desire. Yet speech is not the limit of our vision. The ear entices itself with any sound. The skin will caress whatever tone or temperament that rises or descends. The bones will set themselves to a dance. The blood will argue with a bird in flight. The heart will scale the dew from an old chalice, brush and thrill to an old bone. And yet there is no sign to arrest us from the possible. We remain at rest there in transit from our knowing to our knowledge. So I would set a limit where I meet my logic. I would clamber from my own cave into the curve of sign, an alphabet of transformation, the clan's cloak of reason. I am good when I am in motion, when I think of myself at rest in the knowledge of my moving, when I have the vision of my mother at rest in moonlight, her lap the cradle of my father's head. I am good when I trade my shells and walk from boundary to boundary, unarmed and unafraid of another's speech. I am good when I learn the world through the touch of my present body. I am good when I take the cove of a cub into my care. I am good when I hear the changes in my body echo all my changes down the years, when what I know indeed is what I would know indeed. I am good when I know the darkness of all light and accept the darkness not as sign, but as my body. This is the A of absolutes, the logbook of judgments, the good sign. I thank you very much.